The chamber stretched farther than any human eye could see. Metallic walls glimmered under bright lights, scanning beams gliding across rows of alien warriors. Tentacles, claws, exoskeletons, neural implants. Every species from the outer rings had come to prove themselves. Every single one of them believed they were the strongest, the fastest, the ultimate. A low hum vibrated through the platform. The Galactic Selection Scanner activated, a machine said to measure the apex of ability. It swept over the first warrior, a massive, armored Kralon. Lights pulsed green, then instantly flashed red. Rejected. A chorus of murmurs spread. The next warrior, an amphibious sentinel with razor-sharp appendages, stepped forward. Red. Rejected. One by one, the galaxy's most feared fighters approached. One by one, the scanner refused them. Whispers grew into panic. And then, silence. From the end of the line, a human stepped forward. Small, barely taller than the platform railing. Unarmed. Unimpressive by any standard the aliens understood. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Even the scanner's hum seemed to hesitate. Then, the light swept over her, and the scanner froze. Its interface flickered. Symbols streamed faster than the AI could calculate. A single word appeared across its display. Prototype, origin. Every alien froze mid-step. Weapons lowered slightly. Neural sensors pulsed erratically. The air itself seemed heavier, charged with a tension none of them had felt before. The human, Mara Voss, stood calmly, observing the chaos she had caused without lifting a finger. For the first time, aliens, drones, and the AI realized that this human was not ordinary. Something ancient, something beyond measure, had awakened. The scanner beeped once more, this time almost reverently. Mara didn't smile. She didn't boast. She simply nodded, as if acknowledging that the universe had finally caught up to her. And in that moment, everyone watching understood the unspoken truth. This human would change everything. If you want to see how a single human bends the rules of the galaxy, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the channel grow and ensures you won't miss more epic HFY stories. Mara's hand hovered over the scanner's console. She didn't push buttons, didn't slam keys, didn't threaten. She simply touched the interface lightly, letting her fingers glide over the holographic symbols. The machine reacted immediately, not with resistance, but with synchronization. Lights shifted in harmony with her pulse. Sensors recalibrated, and holographic glyphs danced in patterns no alien had ever seen. The Hall of Warriors, once filled with arrogance, now filled with tension. The massive Kralon in the front row gritted its teeth, claws twitching. Its neural implants screamed for action, but its body refused. Every instinct it had relied on for a lifetime suddenly contradicted itself. Mara's presence wasn't threatening. It was disarming in the most fundamental sense. A small tentacled sentinel whispered to its neighbor, "What is she doing? How is she controlling the scanner?" The scanner's interface pulsed, faster and brighter. Words appeared. Adaptive recognition. Human prototype. Parameters exceed known limits. Legacy systems engaged. The aliens froze. Legacy systems? None of them understood. They had trained for war, for dominance, for centuries. Yet here, a single human had become the defining variable in the station's operation. The AI had never responded to anyone like this. The strongest warriors hadn't even come close. And yet Mara's calm presence had activated protocols no one had seen in eons. Drones hovered closer, almost instinctively adjusting their positions to her rhythm. Energy fields shimmered subtly, bending to anticipate her next move. Even the largest predator, muscles rippling under heavy exoskeletons, took a tentative step back. "Impossible," muttered one of the veteran aliens. "She isn't even armed, and yet everything bends to her." Mara tilted her head slightly, glancing at the scanner. She didn't speak, but her gaze carried a quiet command the system, and every creature could feel. The scanner pulsed once more, almost sentient, acknowledging her as the origin point of all potential in the room. The aliens realized something chilling. Strength, weapons, and aggression. None of that mattered here. Presence alone, intelligence alone, and an unshakable calm could redefine the rules of the galaxy. The hall remained silent. Every alien locked in a state between awe and disbelief. Predators, warriors, and sentinels. Creatures bred to dominate through instinct and strength. Found their instincts betraying them. The Krylon at the front shifted nervously, claws half raised, its neural implants sending conflicting signals. Attack, retreat, hesitate. Each option felt wrong. The human had rewritten the rules without lifting a finger. Mara stepped forward deliberately, her movements calm and measured. The floor beneath her seemed to hum faintly. Drones adjusted their hover patterns, and energy fields shifted subtly, creating clear paths wherever she moved. The aliens watched, frozen, as if even their bodies deferred to her presence. One veteran officer, a four-armed predator with glinting exoskeletons, muttered, She isn't fighting. She's changing us just by existing." A holographic display flickered overhead. The scanner hummed louder, words streaming across it. Adaptive influence. Human presence exceeds all recorded parameters. System recalibration in progress. Even the AI seemed confused, and yet strangely reverent. Its calculations, which had always dominated every system and controlled every alien behavior, now deferred to Mara. Every drone, every containment field, every sensor began adjusting preemptively, anticipating her intention rather than her command. The largest predator, a hulking sentinel with layered armor plates, took a slow step back. Tentacles twitched across the hall. Muscles tensed and relaxed in uncertainty. The creatures had never experienced hesitation like this. Not from an opponent, not from a peer. Her presence created it naturally. Mara glanced at the scanner again. She didn't speak. She didn't raise a hand. The station, the AI, even the aliens themselves all recognized her as the variable they could not compute. The murmurs spread across the hall. It's human, and it's impossible. The realization settled. The strongest in the galaxy were no longer defined by force, aggression, or training. Presence, intelligence, and calm authority could dominate more than weapons ever could. As Mara moved toward the center of the hall, the station itself seemed to acknowledge her presence. Overhead lights brightened subtly as she passed, and energy fields shifted to smooth her path. Drones hovering above adjusted their patrols preemptively, avoiding her trajectory with precise, fluid movements. Even containment grids shimmered as if giving way, allowing her passage. The alien warriors, once confident in their dominance, now froze completely. Muscles tensed, claws twitched, and neural sensors flickered erratically. They had trained their entire lives for combat, for control, for victory, but everything they knew had failed against a single human. From the observation deck, Mara's gaze swept across the hall. She didn't issue orders. She didn't threaten. Yet every creature, drone, and system responded to her unspoken rhythm. It was as if she had become the central axis of the entire station, and every other element, alien, AI, or machine, recalibrated itself to her presence. The scanner hummed louder, words flashing across its display. Subject, human. Influence radius expanding. System protocols adapting. Hierarchy recalibration in progress. A hulking sentinel whispered to its neighbor, I don't understand. She's not even armed. And yet, the system obeys her. The AI itself, previously neutral and monotone, began adjusting its calculations. Systems designed to enforce order and control now prioritized Mara's actions. Lights, doors, and even environmental protocols synchronized with her, highlighting her presence as the defining force in the hall. Every subtle movement she made, tilting her head, shifting her weight, lightly touching the scanner, caused instantaneous adaptations in the station. The aliens were left watching in stunned silence, realizing that their physical strength combat training, and instincts were irrelevant in the presence of this human. Even the most experienced warriors muttered to themselves, voice trembling. She doesn't fight, and yet she dominates everything here. Mara paused near a glowing scanner console, her presence alone enough to command attention. She didn't speak, she didn't raise a hand, yet the hall felt alive with tension. The alien warriors, trained for centuries to act decisively and dominate any opponent, now hesitated. Every instinct that had served them flawlessly in battle seemed to betray them. A quadrupedal sentinel stepped forward, claws ready, neural implants flashing. Normally, this creature would have charged without question, but now, mid-step, it froze, unsure whether to strike, retreat, or do nothing. Mara's calm presence had introduced uncertainty into instincts that had never failed before. Even the AI noted the anomaly. Alien behavior, unpredictably modified. Influence radius, expanding. Decision matrices insufficient. Every movement Mara made, tilting her head, glancing at a console, or shifting her stance, caused drones to adjust their patrols, containment fields to shimmer, and predators to second-guess their reflexes. It was subtle but undeniable. Her presence was rewriting how the aliens acted without any command or aggression. One veteran warrior whispered to another, voice trembling, "I've never seen anything like this. Her presence, it's changing us." The largest Kralon in the front row lowered its shoulders, claws easing slightly, instinctively respecting a force it could not define. Tentacles twitched nervously elsewhere. Even the AI seemed to pause, adjusting its calculations to account for variables it had no protocol for. Mara's influence was not about fighting. It was about existing, about radiating a quiet authority that forced every system and organism around her to reconsider itself. The aliens slowly realized something chilling. They were no longer the dominant force. The rules had changed, and this human had become the axis of control, without lifting a weapon. The hall's tension thickened as Mara moved toward the observation platform. Every step she took seemed to resonate through the station itself. Lights shifted subtly, corridors opened preemptively, and drones altered their patrols, not because she commanded them, but because the AI anticipated her presence and adapted instantly. The aliens, still frozen in awe, watched as their systems, the very station designed to enforce control, began bending to her influence. The largest sentinel, towering over everyone, hesitated mid-stride. Muscles tensed, then relaxed, as if some unseen force had overridden instinct. Smaller predators, whose reflexes had always been razor-sharp, froze completely, eyes tracking her every movement. The scanner's holographic interface flickered, words streaming faster than ever. Human prototype detected, influence radius expanding. Adaptive protocols engaged. The AI, once cold and impartial, began predicting Mara's movements. Energy flows shifted to accommodate her path. Containment fields adjusted preemptively. Doors opened before she reached them. Even the drones hovering above aligned their patterns to match her rhythm, subtly emphasizing her presence. Aliens whispered among themselves, voices trembling. She doesn't fight, she doesn't even command, and yet everything bends to her. Mara didn't speak. She didn't raise her hand. She simply stood, moved, and existed, and every system, every predator, and every drone adapted instantly. The station, once a neutral environment, had become an extension of her influence. For the first time, warriors realized that dominance didn't rely on weapons, size, or implants. It relied on presence, intelligence, and instinctive authority. Mara had become the fulcrum of everything around her. The AI logged a historic note. Subject human, catalyst, system realignment in progress. Galactic parameters updated. Mara paused at the center of the hall, and for a moment, everything held its breath. The AI's lights pulsed rhythmically. Drones adjusted their hover paths, and predators instinctively stepped aside. Every system, every creature recognized her presence as the defining factor in the room. The alien warriors began to act differently. Claws were lowered, tentacles twitched in hesitation, and previously aggressive posture softened. Even the most elite predators, trained for dominance, deferred instinctively, as if some invisible chain of authority now radiated from the human. They weren't being ordered, they were learning to defer. A veteran four-armed officer whispered to his companion, "I've never seen this. She isn't fighting, and yet we're following her instinctively." The scanner pulsed, words streaming across the interface. Human influence detected. Hierarchy recalibration in progress. Legacy protocols overridden. Mara didn't need to speak. A slight tilt of her head, a calm step forward, shifted the behavior of every alien in the hall. The Kralon at the front hesitated mid-step. A smaller predator mirrored the pause, and drones glided smoothly to accommodate her presence. The entire hierarchy, previously built on aggression and dominance, was bending around her existence. The AI had begun a new protocol, learning from Mara, predicting her actions, and integrating them into its system-wide calculations. It had never encountered a human variable that could simultaneously override instinct and command influence without a single command or weapon drawn. Whispers spread. She doesn't just survive, she defines the rules. The Hall of Warriors, the scanners, the drones, even the station itself. Everything now existed in relation to her presence, recognizing her as the pivot point around which authority, order, and influence revolved. Mara stepped toward the observation platform, and the hum of the station seemed to respond to her presence. Drones outside the hall adjusted their routes. Corridor lights brightened in synchrony with her movements, and energy fields elsewhere flickered briefly before stabilizing. The AI, now fully aware of her presence, began transmitting adaptive protocols across the station network. Alien warriors in distant sectors froze mid-step. A quadrupedal sentinel, normally swift and lethal, hesitated as its neural implants recalculated threat matrices. Even the hulking Kralons, stationed near other decks, found their reflexes muted. Mara's influence wasn't just physical. It was systemic, propagating through the AI and altering behavior in creatures that had never encountered her directly. The scanner flashed brightly. Human prototype influence expanding. System-wide recalibration in progress. Legacy hierarchies overridden. Every subtle movement Mara made caused a ripple through the station. She tilted her head, and drones subtly shifted. She glanced at a console, and containment fields adjusted. Even the AI's decision-making patterns began to prioritize her instinctive intent over pre-programmed logic. The aliens whispered in awe and fear. She doesn't fight. She doesn't even touch us. And yet everything bends. From the observation deck, Mara's calm, deliberate actions were already rewriting the operational protocols of every system, drone, and warrior in the station. The AI, which had once dictated the pace, hierarchy, and movement of everything in its network, now looked to her presence as the defining parameter. For the first time, the strongest warriors realized dominance wasn't about strength or weapons. It could be shaped by subtle influence and quiet authority. Mara had become the axis of control, not just in the hall, but across the entire station. The AI, once absolute in its control, now seemed almost hesitant. Its calculations, designed to manage the entire station and enforce order, were being rewritten in real time. Every drone, every energy field, every containment protocol was now responding preemptively to Mara's subtle movements. It wasn't that she gave commands. The AI had begun learning from her instinctive decisions. Mara stepped closer to the main console. A hovering drone adjusted its path, aligning perfectly with her approach, as if it anticipated her intent. She tilted her head slightly, examining the holographic data, and the AI recalculated energy distribution and security patterns instantly. Alien warriors froze mid-step, claws lowering, tentacles twitching, unsure whether to act or wait. Every instinct they relied on was overridden by the station's systems adapting to her presence. The scanner's interface pulsed brighter than ever, words streaming across its display. Human influence, primary variable. System adaptation complete. Predictive models now reference subject behavior. Even the hulking Kraylon at the front, muscles coiled for attack, hesitated. Its mind tried to assert dominance, but the AI systems subtly neutralized any impulsive moves. The predators were now acting in ways they didn't understand, following the rhythm of a human who hadn't drawn a weapon. Mara didn't speak. She didn't gesture. She moved with quiet authority, and the AI mirrored, reinforced, and amplified her influence across every connected system. For the first time in the station's history, a human had become the central decision-making parameter, effectively teaching the AI what it had never been programmed to understand. One alien whispered in disbelief, She's not fighting, and yet she controls everything." The realization hit the hall like a shockwave. Humans could shape systems, creatures, and even AI itself, without force, without weapons, just through presence and intellect. Mara stepped deliberately into the center of the hall. Every drone, every sensor, every predator instinctively recalibrated to her presence. The alien warriors, trained for dominance and aggression, now found themselves hesitating, uncertain, and subordinate without a single command being given. The largest Kraylon, a veteran of countless battles, lowered its shoulders completely. A smaller sentinel mirrored the pause, tentacles twitching nervously. Even the AI, which had once dictated every move, now deferred to her unspoken authority. Her calm, deliberate movements subtly dictated the rhythm of the entire hall. The scanner pulsed, streaming words across the interface. Human influence, hierarchy recalibration engaged, predatory protocols overridden, authority matrix updated. Alien whispers spread through the hall. She doesn't fight. She just exists, and everything bends. Another muttered, trembling, "We've trained for lifetimes, and yet we're following her." The AI began recording behavioral templates based on Mara's presence, integrating her instinctive influence into every system. Drones repositioned themselves to highlight her. Energy flows subtly redirected to her path, and the alien's posture shifted, less aggressive, more deferential. Mara's influence was quiet but absolute. The strongest warriors realized that dominance was no longer measured by size, weaponry, or experience, but by the ability to influence without force. The rules of power, hardwired into the galaxy for millennia, were now rewritten around a single human. The hall was transformed. Mara was no longer just a participant. She was the pivot, the center of a new hierarchy, an axis of authority recognized by drones, AI, and alien instincts alike. Mara moved toward the observation platform, and her presence rippled outward. The AI, now fully aware of her significance, began propagating adaptive protocols across the station network. Drones in distant corridors adjusted their patrols. Containment fields subtly shifted. Even alien warriors far from the hall hesitated, instincts dampened by the invisible reach of her influence. The scanner pulsed, streaming a new message. Human prototype influence, system-wide. Behavioral adaptation active. Network recalibration complete. Every subtle movement she made, turning her head, glancing at a console, taking a step, caused instantaneous adjustments across the station. Environmental controls, security protocols, and alien behavior all synchronized to her rhythm. The AI, previously the master controller, now treated her presence as the primary variable, rewriting decision-making matrices in real time. Aliens whispered nervously, voices trembling. She doesn't even need to fight, and yet everything obeys her. The station itself seemed alive, bending around Mara's will without violence. Drones hovered in perfect formation. Lights highlighted her path, and doors opened preemptively to clear the way. The creatures that had once relied on instinct and aggression were now adapting to a force they couldn't quantify, a human presence. It became clear Mara wasn't just influencing the hall, she was reshaping the operational logic of the entire facility. Every system, every drone, every predator now depended on her, not as a commander, but as the axis upon which the station itself pivoted. The station was transformed. Systems, drones, and alien warriors all aligned instinctively to Mara's presence. She hadn't fired a weapon, shouted commands, or displayed brute strength. Yet every element of the hall and every system connected to it now revolved around her, as if she were the gravitational center of the facility itself. The largest Kralon lowered its massive shoulders in submission. Smaller predators shifted nervously. Even the AI, once impartial and omnipotent, now deferred to her judgment, integrating her subtle cues into its decision-making. The scanner's display flashed one final confirmation. Subject human, prototype origin, systems realigned, human presence recognized as primary constant. Mara didn't react to the words. She didn't need to. Her calm, deliberate stance had already conveyed everything. Humans were not merely participants in the galaxy. They were catalysts for change. The warriors, the drones, and even the AI recognized that her presence alone could redefine power, strategy, and hierarchy. Aliens whispered among themselves, fear and awe mingling. She's not like any human we've encountered. She doesn't fight, and yet she controls everything. Mara walked to the observation platform, light reflecting off her armorless figure. The station lights shifted subtly to illuminate her path. She glanced over the hall, the predators, and the AI interface. Every subtle movement, every quiet breath had reshaped the hierarchy and rewritten the rules. The legacy of humanity, long underestimated by the stars, had awakened in one individual. Mara Voss had proven that strength is not measured in force, but in presence, intellect, and influence. As she looked out over the galactic expanse from the observation deck, the hall, the station, and even the AI seemed to acknowledge one truth. Humans are not just survivors. They're originators, catalysts, and the axis upon which the galaxy can pivot.